Hey, what's up? We back! We got 10 creepiest serial killers ever. Let's go!
Number 10. The Corpse Collector. A Russian historian was caught after robbing the graves of 29 young girls and then taking their corpses home, where he turned the bodies into dolls. Anatoly Moskvin.
That doesn't make you a serial killer.
Yo, what the
remorse about his activities and refused to apologize to the parents of the deceased girls, claiming, "You left them in the cold. I took them home to keep
That
them
doesn't
warm."
mean you're a
The
serial
mummified
killer.
remains of the girls were covered in masks, and he dressed them and applied makeup to them as well. One of the stranger aspects of this case, and there are obviously many, Moskvin actually shared his home with his parents. His parents told authorities they had absolutely no idea that he was collecting bodies and turning them into giant dolls.
They had ideas. They had ideas.
So what classifies you as a serial killer? Is it just the, how many bodies you've got?
I'm going to let your brain do the thinking on this one. Did he kill anyone, or did he just steal bodies of people that were already dead?
You're not wrong.
I know I'm not.
Just thought the large dolls were part of an unusual hobby. During the days of the Soviet Union, Moskvin worked as a translator for military intelligence. He went on after the
really?
collapse of the Soviet Union to write history books. He had a deep comprehension of biology and apparently of cemeteries. Over the years, he dug up many corpses, brought them home, dressed them in clothing, and kept them preserved in his own house. He even celebrated their birthdays with macabre parties. Corpse Collector was captured in 2011 when he confessed to 44 counts of abusing graves.
2011?
And as recently as 2020,
Yeah, I'm fine. He just smacked me in the face with his tail.
Can you imagine being like one of those dudes that has to like patrol the cemetery? And you're just like, you literally just stroll through and you're just looking at it and you're like, why are there like 200 graves that look like they were freshly dug? This dude's just out here stealing the bodies. Is he at least like putting the dirt back in?
I don't know, I wasn't...
You think he would,
There.
because then, you know, they would obviously discover it a lot faster if they're like, alright, there's a hole dug, body's missing. They're gonna sit around and wait for him. He is comfortable, alright?
I'm not.
Good.
of releasing him as his schizophrenia was reportedly cured. The judge in the case overturned the appeal, and he remains in custody. Number 9.
Good.
The Soapy Killer.
Death penalty.
Italian serial killer Leonarda Cianciulli was born in 1894. She got married in the 1930s, opened up a little shop in the small town of Correggio, and started selling soap. Leonarda's shop may have been doing all right, but the rest of her life at the time
Nice
was
lifestyle
filled
you
with
got there.
strife. She served a short jail sentence for committing fraud. Her home was destroyed in an earthquake, and she was constantly battling with her parents about her marriage, which they didn't approve of. Not only that, but Leonarda was experiencing major fertility issues. She'd been pregnant 17 times, but of the 17 children, 3 died due to...
Holy sh**. Honey, you are not a gumball machine. Put
17
the quarter
times.
Put the quarter away.
You know, most people will just be like, you know, I want 2 or 3 kids. We'll call it. It's great. This goddamn out here, I want 17 children.
You can't call her a she has a husband. Never.
17 children.
Okay. That's normal back then.
miscarriage, and 10 died during early childhood. She became incredibly superstitious about her children, and also became more deeply interested in fortune telling, a childhood.
He's clawing the at me.
That's because you won't shut your ass up.
I hope he attacks you. I really do.
He's not gonna. He loves me too much.
It was during a meeting with another fortune teller who predicted her remaining 4 children would also die that she was told that the only way to prevent her still living children from dying was to start sacrificing people. Leonarda was frightened, but she didn't start the human sacrifices right away. However, in 1939, her son told her he was joining...
Hey kids, I'm gonna stop you from dying. I'm gonna go kill people.
Because someone told me to.
This pushed Leonarda into action, and she began luring women back to her soap shop and killing them in an effort to keep her surviving children safe. How did she kill these women, and what did she do with them? That's the true horror of it.
That's
She
the
first
question.
tricked the women into going into her shop by promising to tell their fortune, or offering to help them find whatever they were looking for, including telling one victim she could help them find a husband. She drugged her victims with spiked wine, then she killed each woman with an axe and boiled their body in caustic soda. She then used her victims' flesh and fat to make soap that she sold in her store. She gave these...
Nice.
Y'all out here washing your bodies with human flesh.
At least she's not eating anyone.
When did this happen? In the 30s?
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that soap still ain't out there in the world.
soap to her neighbors, her friends, and anyone who would pay for them. She also used some of her victims' fat to make cakes.
Just kidding.
But her killing spree ended after just the third.
My comment, did it age well?
Well, that's your loss, because for the record, I like pie. I am a pie person. Cake can literally go f itself.
A witness saw the victim going into her soap shop and then never coming out. When police went to investigate, she confessed everything and was arrested. Number 8. Food for workers. In the United Arab Emirates, a Moroccan woman went seriously off the deep end. Back in 2018, she suffered a fit of insanity in which she killed her boyfriend of 7 years and then cooked him. According to a report from the BBC, her boyfriend had been planning on leaving her. He was
She cooked him up and ate him. Hello, Clarice. Care to come over for dinner?
marry a different woman from Morocco, and this naturally upset the unnamed killer. Feeling like a thrown-away piece of trash, she murdered her boyfriend, cut him into pieces, ground up his flesh in a blender, and turned him into a traditional Moroccan dish with rice and vegetables. She then took the dish to some nearby Pakistani construction workers and watched them eat it. This part of the killing goes beyond unwarranted. The construction workers were made to eat a person without their knowledge, and were likely completely...
You know, watching this, alright, and then thinking about all the food trucks that are out there that you don't know what is in that, and they're just out here passing it around. How's that meatball sub you're munching on there? Might have some flesh in it.
Why she went to this extent of horror is beyond understanding. It was the murdered boyfriend's brother who ended up solving the case. When he went looking for his missing sibling, he found a single tooth sitting in a blender in the woman's house. He phoned the police. DNA tests confirmed the tooth belonged to the victim, and she broke down and confessed. Last we heard, she was sent to a mental hospital. Number 7.
Oh, that's
Ed
it. You
Gein's
just do all that and then say, I'm
It comes to
crazy.
killers who made a career out
Let
of
me
crafting
live.
This is
things
what,
in the hands of their
Tech-
victims.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based off of, is Ed Gein.
Ed Gein holds the title of most creative. When the authorities raided Ed's house back in the 1950s,
Y'all need a new
they found
holster,
so much
bro.
horror that it's hard to even describe. Ed had a fascination with decapitation, necrophilia, and arts and crafts. He started out as a fairly ordinary resident of Plainfield, Wisconsin, but when his mother died, he really went off the rails. He had been oddly obsessed with his mother and didn't seem able to process the fact that she was gone. In the mid-1950s, when Ed was alone and confused, residents of Plainfield began going missing. By 1957, the police had linked Ed to both Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden, both of whom had vanished. When the police went into Ed's house, they found suits, lampshades, and chairs made from human skin, masks made from people's faces, a belt crafted of human nipples, and several human organs stuffed into jars.
What's up? What's on your mind?
That dude had
A nipple belt.
quite the crafting fetish, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. You didn't know this?
You know, I never really looked into this dude, but I guess I'm glad I'm doing it now.
Multiple local women. He had also been digging up graves at the nearby cemetery, using the bodies of the recently deceased in his arts and crafts experiments.
Where
The
you
man who
going?
was credited as being the inspiration for the killer Buffalo Bill in the movie Silence of the Lambs, was later found guilty of murder and criminally insane. He died in captivity in 1984. Number...
That's what you get. See you later.
Old Lady Killer. Ed Gein may have been one of the most notorious serial murderers, but Juana Barraza Samperio is a criminal mastermind. She is currently spending the rest of her days locked up in the Santa Marta de Acatitla prison in Mexico. The reason for her incarceration...
Of course she is.
She killed at least 48 people. She's known as the Little Old Lady Killer. When
Just got sick and tired of people
her days selling popcorn and occasionally fighting.
Never mind the old lady that's got a brick in her purse, right? Now you gotta watch out for the little old lady that's sporting a Glock or some and just blast your ass.
The rest of her time, she was hunting and killing elderly women. According to the Mexican authorities, Juana killed nearly 50 people in Mexico City between the 1990s and January 25th, 2006. She only got caught when a neighbor witnessed her leaving the scene of a crime. Although the cops couldn't get evidence for every murder, they did manage to pin her in 17 of them. These 17 murders alone earned her 759 years in jail. During her trial, it came out that Juana was a psychopath incapable of feeling remorse. She actually thought she was helping society by getting rid of elderly women, likely because of the trauma she experienced.
Working with the elderly population, some of them, yes, that makes me sound terrible, but some elderly people are just so mean for no reason. You can't tell me I'm wrong.
I can vouch for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
This lady trying to go after old women. How are you helping?
She helped them see the light.
Apparently.
It's not funny. That's so bad. I'm laughing at people being murdered.
When Juana was just a young girl, her mother would trade her to dangerous men for things like beer and cash.
Okay, that makes sense why she killed elderly women, because she held a grudge against her mom. Makes sense.
Yeah, every single one of these, they all have the same thing in common. Motive. They're not just, these people are crazy and they're just, up here letting people pass through the gates.
Most of them have motive.
But people don't look at that. They're just like, oh, they're crazy.
No. Everyone looks at the motive.
If you look into the story, they're all just, oh, something happened, and they just,
That turned them crazy.
They just snapped.
That turned them, yes.
Any normal person could end up doing this.
Not necessarily.
You never truly know.
I guess. You're not wrong.
That's insane.
She took that hate of her mother and transformed it into something evil, lashing out at older women, perhaps because they reminded her of her mother. And now for a serial killer, Santa.
Oh, we got a killer Santa?
I didn't know this was taking a turn towards the Terrifier.
We about to learn.
Which the third one was god-awful.
Learn how Krampus was born. Y'all watched Terrifier 3?
I wish I didn't.
That movie was dude.
I liked the first one. The second one was meh. The third one was why.
Yeah, talk about a killer Santa.
Number 5. Serial killing Santa. Bruce MacArthur was seen on the outside as a happy man. Those that knew him described him as outgoing, friendly, and even jovial. He had white hair, a white beard, and played the perfect Santa Claus at the Agincourt Mall in Toronto as recently as 2016.
Okay.
He was a 66-year-old landscaper who posed as Santa during the holidays, and it seemed that he loved children. What no one knew was that Bruce had a bizarre attraction to the dead. Not only did he have an obsession with dead bodies, but he was also a serial killer. As a landscaper, Bruce used his cover to bury the bodies of his victims in his customers' gardens.
That's...
His clients thought he was simply beautiful landscapes. He was actually turning them into secret graves.
The cops just knock on your door, right? You get a... We need a dig up your yard.
But why? I just had these flowers planted and they're so beautiful. They're growing very nicely.
Literally.
They had some, like, real good fertilizer they put down there. This is magic. You can't get rid of that. Digs up dead body.
I don't know
Oh.
how that got there.
In 2010 and 2017, Bruce MacArthur murdered 8 men that we know of. His targets were the homeless, the destitute, and immigrants in the predominantly gay neighborhood of Church and Wellesley. Bruce's method of killing is what will really give you chills. Strangulation was his preferred method. He would wrap a rope...
Alright, you can't just pick a category of people and then just assume that it's okay. No matter the circumstances.
What
Alright?
do you mean?
This dude targeted the, the homeless and all those other ones. Trying to be like, oh, I'm doing y'all a favor. So
You don't know
it
that.
makes it okay. No, the hell it does not. You're just insane.
But it didn't say that he thought he was making anything better. He could have just... That was his type.
I'm gonna start sitting over here a little bit more.
the metal bar to tighten the ligature. Once his victim had stopped breathing, Bruce would then do a photo shoot. He would dress up his victims in things like fur coats, sometimes positioning them as if still alive, with one victim even photographed with a cigar hanging out of his mouth. When Bruce was
What a
finally
G.
caught by the police, authorities in Toronto had to check out 75 properties in search of remains. Bruce had concealed many victims in the planters and gardens he had worked on as a landscaper. How do you think you'd react if the police told you they needed to inspect your yard for human remains?
Do you have a warrant?
We see you just planted this garden. We need to dig it up now. There might be a body under there. You know what I would do? I'd probably just let them. Because you could say no, and then they're just going to come back and do it anyways. You might as well just let them. Like, what have you got to lose? Your flowers? Plant them again, you lazy sack of shit.
Number 4. The torso.
This guy
murder.
says that one
From
more time.
1935 to 1938, between 12 and 13 bodies were found dumped in Cleveland's Kingsbury Run. The area is a creek bed that runs through the city down to the Cuyahoga River. The victims included at least 7 men and 5 women, most of whom were unhoused or sex workers. These unfortunate people were living far below the poverty line in the days when Cleveland was still suffering from the impacts of the Great Depression. Most of the individuals weren't reported missing for months after their disappearances, sometimes not even until their bodies were found. What makes these murders especially disturbing was the fact that every single body was found without a head or limbs. The only parts of the remains that turned up
It's
were
always the
torsos
head.
of the victims. After over 80 years,
What
this
is
still the
everyone's
most gruesome
fascination
crime
with
spree in
removing
the history of
heads?
Cleveland. The killer is known today as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, and believe it or not, he or she has never been identified by the police. The killings only stopped when the
Nice.
killer presumably lost interest, moved, or died. Even years after the torso stopped turning up, authorities
Pause.
still were unable
Pause. Serial killers just don't lose interest in killing. They all were homeless or sex workers.
say no one knows what the Mad Butcher did with the heads and the limbs of their victims. Number 3. The Bone Collector. In Mexico, authorities recently discovered approximately 3,787 bone fragments that they say belong to at least 17 different murder victims. The killer in this story was a bone collector. He had a fascination with killing and dismembering.
No, really?
The Mexican authorities have not been able to release his identity, but they do say that by the time they caught up to him, he was 72 years old. The cops actually arrested this serial murderer in connection with the killing of a 34-year-old woman whom he reportedly cut up with a hacksaw. It was when they began looking at his home that they discovered the true scope of his crimes. During careful excavations, the police found the bones and bone fragments, as well as 91 photographs, 8 cell phones, a bucket full of women's jewelry, and actual videotape of the man murdering his victims. He had been dismembering his victims.
So why
cutting
can't we
them up
release
so
his name?
small that he had pieces of them hidden all throughout his house. The police were shocked and horrified when they realized the extent of the crime scene. As of right now, the police are still trying to extract DNA from the bone fragments to identify the victims, many of which are probably missing people.
Y'all are taking your sweet time to do that, but we got scientists out here that are literally like on the verge of bringing back dinosaurs.
Because they didn't make a movie about that, and it ended so well for everyone involved.
You know?
Meantime, the identity of this prolific serial murderer has still not been released.
But why?
Number 2, human burgers. Joe Metheny, much
Oh,
like Jeffrey Dahmer
he's
and John Wayne Gacy, is a truly
up.
gruesome killer. But for some strange
No, pause
reason,
this.
despite-
Pause this, because if this is what I'm thinking of, this is a man that killed sex workers and turned them into, like, food and sold them in, like, a food truck.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Shall we rewind to where I just said you shouldn't trust the in food trucks because you don't know what the hell they're selling you?
I can't tell if this is part of my mask or Theo's fur in my mouth.
horror of his
Cheese ball.
he is not as well known. If you're one of those people who haven't heard of him, get ready to be shocked.
Nice teeth you
Joe
got
was
there.
arrested in Baltimore back in December of 1996. At the time, police knew he was responsible for at least 3 murders. But after he was convicted of these murders, he finally spilled the beans that he killed at least 10 people. He also admitted that he was a cannibal, and that he served his victims to unsuspecting patrons of his burger stand. He would take the meat from people he killed and mix it with pork or beef, or simply use it as it was. And shockingly enough, Joe told the authorities that not a single person could seem to taste the difference between regular burgers and those made with his victims.
That's crazy, dude. Like, can you just imagine getting a burger and you don't know? You could literally have been eating somebody.
Being so excited for that burger, and then you're like,
But you
I
wouldn't
ate
know.
there.
You wouldn't know because
Well, you wouldn't know
don't
until
taste
after
the
the
difference.
fact. After the fact, when they're like, oh, by the way, we caught this guy, and if you ate at his stand, guess what? You just ate a person. But then here's the thing. So,
And
like,
then it's just like magically this like chain restaurant that's been around for like 10 years or some shit. And you're just like, well,
but like, here's the thing. If we put like animals down for biting people and like eating dead people, why don't we put humans down that have eaten people?
because then they don't get to suffer. They don't get to suffer if you just, here you go, death.
Live on with the fact that you ate someone and you enjoyed it.
Pretty much. That's, there's a lot of crazy things that happen, and a lot of crazy things that should happen, but they don't.
Joe was given several life sentences to be served continuously and without the possibility of parole. Since his arrest, however, he has repeatedly begged for the death sentence. In an interview, Joe told the press that the only thing he regrets about his killing spree is that he was caught before he had the opportunity to kill the 2 people he really wanted, his ex-girlfriend and the guy she replaced him with.
Oh! Loser! You went through all that and you didn't even get the original task done. You know, I feel like to him that hurts worse.
And that's why she replaced you.
That's worse than death for that dude.
That's why she replaced you. Because you don't know how to do things right. She probably had to do them all herself.
And they're probably sitting there like, oh, thank God he didn't kill us. But at the same time, they're probably like, he just did all that, and he literally didn't even complete what he wanted to do in the beginning. The dude sucks.
Number 1. Boyfriend stew. Catherine Knight
Oh.
killed her boyfriend and then turned him into a stew. For this bizarre crime, she became the first Australian woman to receive a life sentence without parole. The terrible murder came after a lifetime of toxic relationships. Catherine's life and relationships were plagued with abuse, violence, and frightening fits of temper. In 1995, she moved in with John Price, the man who she would eventually murder. According to friends and family,
She turned Captain Price into stew, brother.
she had wanted to marry him, but John declined. When he refused to get married, Catherine turned violent. In 2000, the pair argued, and Catherine tried to stab him in the chest. Price had to get a restraining order against her, but they later reconciled. Price, however, would not let Knight move back into the home, in order to protect his 2 older children. On February 29, 2000, she let herself into John's house, seduced him in the middle of the night, and once he was asleep, she stabbed him 37 times. Catherine then went downstairs, dragging his body behind her. She hung him from a meat hook in the living room, one of the tools of her trade.
Brutal.
Removed his head, then cooked up a meal using his
What
body,
the
along with potato
fuck
and pumpkin,
was a
some
meat hook
squash,
doing in the
and a
kitchen?
bit of gravy that she intended to later serve to John's children.
Did I hear that right? Oh, I'm reading it. Okay.
She didn't just serve him as stew, alright? She literally served him to his children.
She intended to. Doesn't mean she did it. But still f***ed up. Do you want to come here? Come here.
That's insane.
Is that why you're looking at me?
After Catherine finished cooking her lover, she took John's headless body and lay down with it in bed. She swallowed
Yo, what? I just chopped your head off, but let's go to bed now.
Come lay down with me.
Let's go.
I can't sleep without you.
When the police arrived the next morning at the behest of John's co-workers, who were worried because he didn't show up to work, they found Catherine covered in blood, John's body, and the remnants of her macabre meal. She claimed to have no memory of what she had done, but was charged.
She was caught, and she can't make any more, human stew, I guess.
I feel like there's worse serial killers out there than the ones that was on this playlist.
I'm sure there are. But you know what? One less. Not one less person, but one less, serial killer.
They're still people.
But at least,
I don't think
this
I'll be
poor
able to
man.
look at beef stew the same.
Literally, his children probably don't ever want to eat beef stew again. I bet you they are probably vegan now. They're like, well, you can't turn this lettuce into people, so I guess there's that.